Hi there, Mr. Sand, back at you. This is topic 4, rearranging tools on Unit 2 acceleration. So, I think of formulas and equations as tools. They're ways in which you can take something and kind of manipulate it into something more useful to solve a problem, really. It's just like a hammer or like a screwdriver or something like that, a saw, I don't know, other tools you use. Anyway, for certain problems, you need certain tools. And sometimes you need to modify tools. You need to rearrange them in some sort of way to solve the problem. So far, we've only covered a couple equations, but we can use those equations, even though they seem simple, and rearrange them to find something pretty interesting. So after you read the text, I hope this makes a little bit more sense, or you can watch this first and then read the text. It's up to you. I'm going to go through just a couple of those equations. And we've got a couple of equations that we know just hopefully off the top of our head. So I'll use tungsten to show this, and I'll use a little bit thicker marker to show this as well. Oh, maybe not that thick. Let's use this. See how this looks. So far we know for average velocity, it's kind of fuzzy. I don't like the fuzziness. For average velocity, this is average velocity, not instantaneous velocity, so I use a little line over the top of that. That's even worse. Okay, let's go to this. There we go. For velocity, for average velocity. The change in displacement over the change in time, that's what it equals. And we know that acceleration, that's average acceleration, is the change in velocity over the change in time. All right. So what are we going to use here? This is very simple kind of rearranging of tools. We're going to go into a little bit more advanced next time, so this is going to be really quick. So let's just take the average, let's just take this average acceleration and kind of break that out a little bit more. So this is going to be acceleration equals Vf, which is the final velocity, minus the initial velocity, all over delta t. Now we can rearrange this to solve for Vf. Simply by multiplying both sides by delta t first. So that's the first step. I might as well just write that out. So it's going to be delta t times average acceleration, and that equals Vf minus u. U, again, is the initial velocity. This is the final velocity. Now, just to solve for final velocity, let's just say we want to solve for final velocity. We could solve also for initial velocity, but we'll just do final. We add u to both sides. So this is going to be, I'll just rearrange this a little bit more, make it a little bit nicer. And sometimes we don't even write the average. We just leave the a by itself. So it's going to be a times delta t. Now, is it going to be minus or plus u? It's going to be plus u equals Vf. And this way, if we're given acceleration, if we're given the change in time, and if we're given the initial velocity, we can find what the final velocity is going to be. Same thing goes for the initial velocity. We can find the initial velocity if we know the final velocity, the acceleration, and the change in time. You can also solve for the initial time or the final time using the same kind of approach. So this is how you do it. And it's a nice, useful exercise. So A equals delta V over delta T. I'm just going to do the same thing over here, except now I'm going to expand the delta T part of this. So it's going to be delta V over the final time minus the initial time. Let's say that you want to find the final time. You could also solve for the initial time, like the final time if you are given the initial time. To solve for this, how would you solve this? Well, actually, the easier thing to do would be to, let's just keep this like that. We'll multiply both sides by this quantity right here. It'd be A times TF minus TI equals delta V. Okay. Now I want to get TF by itself, so I want to divide both sides by A. So this will be TF minus TI equals delta V divided by A. Now I want to get our TF by itself, so it's going to be TF plus TI on that side, so it'll be delta V over A plus TI. And that's how we solve for TF. So be flexible in your formulas and your algebra skills. There are a lot of different variables that are involved in these, especially with the change in something over the change in something else. So be able to use your algebra skills to rearrange quantities and find these different values. It's all about rearranging the tools in this section, the tools that you already have. And you'll be using these formulas, perhaps this formula over here as well. I mean, think about what you do here. That's very similar to the way you did this over here with the velocity, the final velocity and initial velocity. You can do the same thing for final position and initial position for this delta S and average velocity. Think about how you can use these tools to solve tons of problems. And good luck.